Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Woolwine. Today, we are on call with EC3. How are we doing?
We're doing excellent. Apparently, the car, my awesome souped up Jeep, just got ramrodded and is now a total loss. So I'm
Oh,
kind of
boy.
like, but like, is it a good thing? Because the return value is pretty high on them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to handle it. But like, I loved my Jeep and I was going to drive it till it died. And well, I guess I did. So, I used to be
So,
into material things, but then like, I've realized in a minimalist lifestyle, I don't really need much. But I did like my Jeep. And you think EC3, you think the Maseratis and the Audis and whatever the shit. But nah, man, I just like big truck-like things that aren't trucks so people don't ask me to help them move. But
I think you driving a Jeep makes way more sense than a Maserati or something else. I'm not gonna lie.
you're right, absolutely right. First off, made in America, I think. Well, it was probably made in Canada by the time I got it. But yeah, I'm a Jeep guy for sure. I hate the Jeep Wave, but I like the Jeep ride.
Okay. Before we get started with questions, is there anything you want to plug? Social medias, Exodus Pro, anything like that?
I mean, I'm terrible at plugging myself, but at the real EC3 on the social handles, Instagram, Facebook, X, I guess I rarely post, though I should because it's my job. Really want to talk about Exodus Pro. So you're in Chicago. I don't know, what's the target demographic of your podcast? What kind of like
Uh,
range? Kind of all over the place, or is it?
all over the place.
All right.
It's new, so we're growing. We haven't found the audience yet.
Creating content is all about consistency, from what I've heard.
Yes.
So even Joe Rogan started somewhere. The one thing is you just have to keep fucking doing it over and over and over and finding that niche, especially in a crowded market. Maybe we can help you figure it out here, but I'll talk about Exodus Pro, exoprowrestling.com or at Exodus Pro Wrestling. I don't know our handles. Exodus Pro on Instagram, which is our main feature. We're going to have TikTok and YouTube, but we stream live our shows on the NWA's YouTube. Our next show is March 15th, 2025, Win in Rome 2 in Cleveland, Ohio. So if you're in the vicinity, which I'm going to invite you, but if you're in the vicinity of Cleveland, I'd say 5 to 12 hours. Hop in a car, drive up. It's going to be a great event. I run the best shows. I'm sure the talent that have worked for me and have been cultivated by me will say that's the case. Yeah, but I got a main event. It's a Final Flowers match with myself against Richard Holiday, who's a big dickhead. And then we got our tag team champions, TME, the main event. You should see these guys. They're huge freaks, defending in a three-way tag match against Major League, Cleveland, whatever guys, and this young team, Alienated Youth, that are probably get thrown out of the building. We got the Exodus Pro Women's Champion Tiffany Nieves there. We got Dante Casanova, our new champion, defending against Anthony Green. And we have our former champion, Pretty Boy Smooth, challenging Calvin Tankman, who I believe is a Chicago guy. And I'm really excited to see what he can do. So it's a cool show.
If you had to give us like a short explanation, what would you say the idea or the mission behind Exodus Pro Wrestling is?
Evolving what we love to what we want it to be. So we all
Okay.
love wrestling. I mean, we're on a podcast that says I love wrestling, right? Or is it I
Yep.
like wrestling? I
I
love
love wrestling. We love
I
wrestling
like
around
I
here.
love the idea of wrestling. I love what wrestling can and has been. What I don't love are some of the kind of like modern takes in a sense. I don't love the constant scrutiny. I don't love the fact that I think people have lost the idea that this shit's supposed to be fun and engaging and entertaining. And
100%.
like I am a wrestler, right? I'm pretty high level. Like, so I understand concepts of work rate and move sets, but I also understand the concepts of character and storytelling and trying to combine those in a palatable way for everybody to enjoy. And that is from the most dire smart mark to the most oblivious casual person. If they could walk into an Exodus show and in 2 hours and 45 minutes understand everything that happened and each glass is filled. Like the hardcore fan got every ounce of like technicality and holds and working, while the casual fan got that was a fun 2.5 hours where I drank a bunch of beer and I saw a bunch of dudes fight and some hot chicks and it was cool. So like combining those is the dream.
Okay. with that said, what made you find wrestling and like maybe fall in love with it at a point in time?
As a child of the late 80s, I liked sports and I liked movies, particularly action movies involving larger than life icons. Think Arnold Schwarzenegger, think Sylvester Stallone. I guess you could say Bruce Willis, though he wasn't very jacked. You got your Van Dams, guys like that, Bloodsport. So over the top, crazy, muscly freaks in wild, uh, unrealistic situations, while also the competitive and athleticism of sport. Like, where do you go from there? Well, that was pro wrestling, right? So, you're growing up and you got to choose between Hogan or Warrior. Whoops. Either way, but like seeing these larger than life icons kind of on the TV pop up with a Nubian, fresh, young mind really captivated me, and it's something that stuck with me. In high school was the Attitude Era, and I was still a fan. In college, I'm trying to get educated, but I hated everything about it because I wanted to wrestle, so I went and wrestled. And here we are today. So, childhood ambition, I guess, is what initially caught me.
Okay. What would you say drove you to actually start training and beginning your pro wrestling journey?
The fact that very much try to retain sovereignty and individuality in what I am and who I want to be. So I wanted to do something and I couldn't shake the feeling. You only have one life to live. Give it a shot. Whether it panned out or it wouldn't have, at least I can know that I tried something. And if you're going to try something, if you're really going to like put yourself out there and try to do something, you have to understand the concept of you have to go all the way. Because if you don't have that intention, if you don't have that mindset, somebody else is going to, and somebody else will beat you to it. So, win or lose, if you go all the way, you can at least look at yourself and be proud knowing that I did everything I could. And I think a lot of people don't realize that getting into this, where it really is like, it's not fucking easy. And it's not just the physicality and it's not just the training. It's not just the getting spotlighted or contracts or being on the radar or making it somewhere. It's a emotional and a spiritual grind at times where if you want true success in something, going all the way sometimes means you have to rid yourself of what people normally are attracted to, the comforts of life, the companionship of others. There's a lot you have to sacrifice if you really want to make it in anything. Wrestling is not excluded.
What do you think's been able to keep you motivated and your eyes on track? What's been your motivation?
I think, I've been fairly successful. I'm a three-time world heavyweight champion. I've beaten Kurt Angle, which as a child was my dream match. I've headlined major shows. I've been all over the world. I've done plenty of cool shit. But you always have the want and need for like more. So I had shitty WWE runs, but they made me who I am today. So in theory, there's pride in that, but at the other end, it's like these guys ain't that good compared to me. Where there, I don't want to say jealousy because you should never be jealous, and envy is not something to chase, but there are unanswered questions of what can be done and what I could do and what I wanted to do. But keeping your eyes on the prize is really about, again, this is life, is having a purpose within it. So is wrestling the purpose? It was, and it is to an extent, but maybe that purpose has grown into something more. Maybe that purpose has grown into leading people into, you know, the unknown. Perhaps it's with this business and what I'm doing with Exodus, or perhaps it's, fans recognizing the real life situations wrestlers find themselves in and maybe finding inspiration and courage within that. So finding a purpose, however you want to define it, is probably the most important thing.
Okay. I know off camera, I name drop Brandon Beretta.
Yeah.
Somebody who is a control your narrative co-op. Can you explain to us a little bit more of what that means?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, what did he have to say about it?
We didn't really dive much into it, honestly. We dove a lot into Exodus.
Well,
Um,
Exodus, think of Exodus as the co-op. It's the same thing.
okay,
So,
so they're one and the same.
yeah, like in fact, I'm branding them on the same. Let CYN become something else completely. But Exodus co-op, he trained with Exodus. He's being pushed, cultivated, created by Exodus. So we can go that route. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. That makes a little bit more sense. I was wondering if they were two different entities or if they were the same entity. So I guess that answered that question.
I hold on. The name is cool, and the
I
brand. I have a
yeah,
trade, so I wanted to use it. But like, what I'm realizing now, and we'll probably talk about this though, is making everything easy to digest for people. So the fact, as a wrestling fan who spoke to a guy who wrestles for me and trained under me, we have confusion means it's not working. So
okay,
Exodus is, yeah, the training as well.
okay. I'm gonna float over to OVW for a second. You currently wrestle there, work there, but you also worked there in the past. Does it ever feel full circle to you coming back after all that time? And like, are there any major differences between the company now as opposed to then?
Oh, we'll have to circle back to Beretta, but as far as OVW, like coming back, I was very, very close with Al Snow, who was probably one of the seven people I'd say are responsible for my mindset in this business.
Okay,
And so working with them was more like they had some things going where with TV and then maybe there's something there to do. I kind of wanted to bridge a gap between the NWA and OVW to be a, cohesive force. But that was out of my control. Full circle, it was a totally different ball game for me because when I went there, I was a rookie trying to get looked at by the WWE when it was a developmental territory. For when I came back, I'm a veteran world champion who's working with younger guys to hopefully bring them up, but also prying my craft at the same time. So, I mean, as the NWA champion, I defended the title 74 times in a calendar year. Good handful of those with OVW. So it's more notches on my bedpost per se. I
okay.
haven't been there lately as yeah, last time I was there, JBL clotheslined me to hell. So I guess I died. But it wasn't full circle. It was just a different version of something, but it did have, nostalgic means walking back into that building every time and being like, remembering what it was, where I started to who I am now and where I'm going.
Do you think it would have been more full circle maybe if, let's say, you came back as the same individual that you were before, but since
Hmm.
you came back as EC3, does that make a big difference?
Yeah, I don't know if Mike Hunter would be a draw. So, uh, yeah, hard to say because it's hard to say that. I mean, life, we're like water, man. And no matter what, it's always in a different place. So it's hard to be the same person when you're somewhere and you come back. But
Okay.
yeah, I wouldn't want to think of it like that either. I think what would be interesting is if time travel is real, if I can catch myself walking in those doors in 2007 and I'm watching from my broken down Jeep and going like, hey, come here. I got about 400,000 things I need to tell you first before you walk in there. Things might have been different, but
Okay.
maybe not better. So,
I see. Looking back at your career, how important was Derek Bateman to the evolution of EC3?
that is a great question. I'm glad you asked it because this is an issue I'm dealing with a lot of young talent coming up. Okay. And so, an example I will say is like who you want to be is not who you need to be to get to where you want to go, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And then there is no EC3 without Derek Bateman. Derek Bateman sucked. Like, I hated Derek Bateman. He was a goofy, long-haired, job guy, right? But without being Derek Bateman, without having those runs on NXT, watching the system develop, seeing the interaction of politics, learning the craft, even if Derek Bateman sucked, On the bottom of the card, I'm hanging out with guys, watching guys like Orton or Cena, Taker work every night. Like that is an education that I can take forward. So a lot of young guys, let's take for example, just because he's on the top of my head, one of my guys, Pretty Boy Smooth, who has cultivated a really strong character that is a persona he's comfortable being because it's himself, which are the best kinds. But to new places and new territories, they're not going to understand who he is and the depth of him until they have to get to know him first. So you almost need to scale back who you want to be something easy to recognize and digestible till you get there. So, for example, with the NWA, he's coming in and he's kicking ass and it's great, but he's under a new set of eyeballs where they don't understand, pretty boy, but you're a big giant man. There's a disconnect. And if they feel there's a disconnect, they might not get behind it. Granted, they will because he's going to work into it. But because what is the first thing they see when they see him? A gigantic 6'9" ass kicking machine. They don't see a smooth talking playa right off the bat. So me telling him like there had to be a Derek Bateman before there's an EC3, there might have to be a PB before there's Pretty Boy Smooth world champion. So it's very important. And for any young and up and coming wrestler, when it comes to cultivating that persona and that character you want to be, dude, The Rock was Flex Cavana. Stone Cold Steve Austin was Stunning Steve Williams. Kurt Angle was Kurt Angle, but he thought he was Stone Cold if you read about it in his book. Uh, all these guys, Batista was a deacon, you know, Undertaker was a big red, whatever. Like, so know that who you want to be it takes time to get there, and sometimes you just need that way in. So I hope that answered it. That's pretty depth. That was pretty in depth.
I liked it. I always find the evolution of a character very interesting. And like you can see, especially from early EC3, the small traits of Derek Bateman that were there, but over time were left,
Yeah,
which I think is the coolest part about watching your career is
I
how
think
you shed that skin.
thank you for noticing because like I'm a Pisces, so I take the art of it stupidly serious. Where at the end of the day, we're play fighting on television in our underwear, but the depth of storytelling or intricacies or Easter eggs you leave along the way, they're not for everybody. But when they get noticed, your ego gets tapped. So thanks. Because there was a lot of that. It was kind of that transition too, where EC3 is a totally different entity than Derek Bateman, but how did it start? In shitty heel, spoiled rich kid, entitled, getting fed everything. So those like traits can stand. But to progress to becoming a top guy, a champion, to work with the likes of Sting or Bully Ray or Kurt Angle or Matt Hardy, like you have to develop battle tested sort of psyche over that time. And so this is not something they teach you in wrestling school. This is not something they teach you in WWE Creative Academy. This is shit you guys gotta have to find out for yourself. And the ones that can do it right. But it's hard to take on because no one's telling you how to do this, or no one's telling you to even do this. So you just have to pick the moments and the times where you kind of level up your persona into what's next. So shitty mid card, cheap cheap heat heel to become a world champion who dethroned an Olympic gold medalist, fucking killer. There had to be stages of evolution because if you just go like that, people aren't buying it. But if you see it progress over time, whether it's in the forefront or subconscious in a fan's mind, they can see it makes sense. Which could be here's a thing we could talk about because we didn't put over strictly business Brandon Beretta enough,
Okay.
but Top Gun Brandon Beretta. Like he came to a couple of my seminars, the prefaces. I always thought he was very talented as a wrestler. Still do. Uh, there was a time where I was at OVW and he's like really picking my brain, and these are just the things that happen. But I'm like, dude, stop. I don't know. What I know is this. Like I have this feeling. We're having this conversation. I have this weird feeling that if you come to Cleveland and train with me, that is the best way I can help you. I can't help you from afar. I can't help you from this. I can't help you once every month when we see each other. Like if you came to Cleveland with what I'm doing, I can fucking help you. And not only will I help you, if you show that, I will invest to make sure you get everything I can possibly give. And that came, and he came to Cleveland, and Top Gun Brandon Breda was a standout in the school as far as in the ring, but the persona was missing until my creative cohort, Noah, who's a young man we brought along on this journey, was talking to him, and he goes, well, what do you like to do? And I think I wasn't part of the conversation, but Brandon's like, I like to wrestle, I like to work out, I like to diet. And it's like, so you're just like strictly business. He's like, yeah, I guess you can say that. And then the idea of strictly business is born. So this idea gets funneled up to me, and I'm a creative genius. And I'm like, well, fucking strictly business is awesome. Here's how it's going to be different. Every wrestler, you need sizzle to go with your steak, so to speak, which is the character and the presentation, the music, the gear, all the, the flashes to complement what you do in a ring. But my idea was his sizzle is so unsizzling, it's going to be even more sizzle, if that makes sense. A little bit of a paradox. But take away his theme music. He has no theme music. His gear's completely black. His boots are black. Everything about him is lame. His offense is fucking lame. It's devastating, but it's not exciting. Like, I don't know if you've ever been waistlock takedown 15 times in a match. It sucks. But it sure as hell isn't exciting for a fan to watch and go, yay. They're like, can I see something else? So that's what kind of launched it. And then cultivating the character with promos where anytime he's asked the question, he gets a one word answer. Yes, no, whatever. But then finally he just goes off on this long-winded rant of like, dude, that's so technically boring and it goes so long that you just want him to stop talking. We made a star. And now he's thriving. He's getting booked with NWA. He's booked with OVW. Probably going to put him in the title match at the next show in May. Like, that's that. So that's what I do.
What's really cool about that, what you just explained, is I got the exact same version of that story from him. So, like, if anybody's interested, go check out Brandon Beretta's podcast and get the other side of that coin. It's really
Yeah.
cool to hear it from the mentor.
Yeah.
It's different. It's a different perspective, and it's great.
And I'm so proud of him because I'm first off, when I pitch, like, there's these other guys I've worked with, like with CYN and Bobby DDT. There's these ideas I have that only work with me. Not because it's me, but because I am invested in it and I'm going to push it so it gets over. Whereas Brandon Breda trying to sell that to an indie, well, what do you do? I'm really boring and I do waistlock takeovers. Well, what's your theme music? I don't have any. They're like, what the fuck? And then here's the caveat. I have to win. It's like, what? Like nobody's going to book that unless we, which is the idea of Exodus, is create this platform that everybody can kind of get a part of, kind of see, build up this content thing. I know everyone's doing it in wrestling, so how do we do it differently? But if I build this platform that is NWA Exodus and these personalities are being seen on it and the ideas are getting across, now Beretta, oh shit, that's strictly business from Exodus. I get it. Yeah, we'll do that match. And that's kind of the idea.
Okay.
And scene.
End scene. Okay.
Just text
I
me.
okay. I'm going to jump back to TNA just because I'm really interested. We all know that you fought Bully Ray, you fought Sting, you fought Angle, fought Matt Hardy. But what was going through a young EC3's mind when he's facing these legends of the ring and ultimately going over?
Uh, it's wild to think about.
Okay.
You have to have a disconnect with nostalgia and admiration because you're a professional and you want to be even if you're not, and I definitely wasn't on the level of these guys, you want to appear confident that you are. And it's kind of a nerve-wracking process because when they're talking to you, you're like, mm-hmm, yep. And you're like, holy fucking, oh shit. Uh, First time I was in the ring with Sting, it was in the impact zone, which is like 400 people. But it's where I learned the difference between thinking like you're over and you're over. And so EC3 was getting fairly hot, good reaction. I come out, shit talking promo, whatever. Crowd's really into it. Sting's music hits, and the crowd, it just feels different. The energy they have for somebody they're so invested in and have known for so long and have admired for so long. We're like, you can't explain it, but you can feel it. And so, like, I'm standing there looking at this dude face painted with a bat talking to me, and I'm like, holy shit, what is going on? This is crazy. The matches were all right because they were TV matches and time constraints and stuff. It came around with working with Bully too, where that was sort of the real test the metal. And he's not, he's one of the best guys to be cool with, but you got to earn his respect. And so knowing that was the cause of what I had to do to earn that respect, getting my fucking ass kicked by him, it was great. And then, like, becomes easy after that. Not easy, but then once you're kind of like with them, the most important thing a wrestler can have is a confidence in themselves, which is a lacking a lot of times. But once you have that, like the shit isn't easy, but it flows, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Same with Kurt, dude. I'm like, yeah, I'm about to wrestle him for a world title and look across the ring and you talking to him backstage, hanging out with him, meeting him. You're talking to Kurt, but then you're looking across the ring and you just see these fucking zoned in, beady eyes of a true killer, and you're like, ah, shit, dude, what is gonna happen? But it
It's
worked.
great. It's crazy because I understand to a minor extent, just because I've had guys on here that I watched growing up, and sometimes there is that level of nervousness, or uh, sometimes you want to mark out, for lack of better terms, like, and to maintain professionalism and to go in can be
Yeah,
difficult. So I understand.
I like it. You got to think about what did Kobe feel like when he was on the court with Jordan looking at him?
Yeah.
Was it fandom nerves at first, and then like other people are wired differently, or was it Kobe looking at Jordan like, "Oh, you old motherfucker, you're done," and it's Jordan looking at him like, "You think you're gonna fucking take my spot? Hell no!" Like that's cool to think about. It's not easy to always do that though. So Jordan and Kobe are completely different wired human beings than probably 99% of us too. So who's
Yeah.
to say?
You brought up looking across the ring from Angle. How was you feeling looking across from him and then ultimately beating him for your first TNA World Title?
I was sort of like, all right, one thing I teach is there's no such thing as like the perfect match. There's no perfect anything. There's no perfect promo, no perfect sequence, no perfect match, no perfect show. But the only thing you can really strive for are having like perfect moments where everything sort of comes together and like it's it's like Maslow's theory of self-actualization where something happens it's like a perfect moment. So I mean, in that match, it was like a 20-minute match, and after ding ding ding, dude, I don't remember anything other than being like it was a flow state and like it's a very good match, but I mean, it's not like I'm Benoit Angle, you know. But fuck, great story told. Dips in the finish. He was very generous after German suplexing me 17 times. But yeah, slip beat him with a wrestling hold, rolling him up. It was a perfect moment where everything was just in a. It's hard to come back from those, really, and that's why wrestling is such a addictive thing sometimes. But looking across at him, seeing him, doing it, accomplishing it. Really a high point in my life for sure.
I'm sure another couple highlights of your life have been being able to work with some may consider them friends in the business, like your rock star Spuds or your Tyruses. What was it like working with them in TNA? And like, was it your idea maybe even to bring Tyrus in as your bodyguard, things like that?
Yeah, I think Tyrus and I both were in FCW. We both did the dog shit NXT. We both had pretty raw deals kind of on our releases. And to an extent, everyone has one that's not here nor there. But definitely, like, Tyrus loves wrestling. And still, when he's killing it on Fox and writing books and doing live shows, like, he's still talking about it to us. So he loves it. Having him come over to be the heavy. One thing about that, like, I hate the perception in wrestling that one person has to shine and everyone falls in line behind it, like in a faction situation. Like the Shield did very good divvying up. Everyone has their like strengths.
Yeah.
So Tyrus is coming in. Is he my bodyguard and my heavy? Yeah. But then the real reason that shit kind of works, and it's the same with Spud, is because we're both giving to each other to make each other better, get each other more over. So I could very much easily, here's my, don't talk. He beats people up. Like he doesn't do anything. But like we worked around making sure everyone had value. So even if I was the champ, there's a secondary thing that could be a main event guy right behind me. And the same with Spud. It's very easy. That could have been, I'm a rich asshole and this is my little, servant. But instead, we portray the relationship like we're best friends. I'm kind of like indifferent to it, but he's really into it. And that's what made us breaking up so emotionally cathartic in that little angle we did because it was not planned to be this long form angle. It was going to be like, you're going to drop Spud and you're going to move on. And that was one of those times I had the confidence to be like, no, we got to do something because this is special. And it turned out to be one of the better, stories told in Impact Wrestling's history. So working with friends is cool, but don't be too young people. Don't rely on working with your friends because sometimes when you work people you're close with, if it doesn't go good, you're kind of like you're not mad at each other, but you're kind of are you passing blame to each other. Sometimes you can have great chemistry with those you're close with, and sometimes you can have even better chemistry with people that you're kind of like on a professional relationship with at best. It's interesting.
Working with people like that can definitely put you both in a tough spot if it doesn't go well. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah. Like
Uh,
I'm a huge Cardona fan. I love Matt. I would consider him a friend for sure, but we're not super close. You know, we trade a text every now and then and check in on each other, but when I work with him, I don't know. We have like a very good connection that maybe if we were best buds, it wouldn't be as good. Just an
that makes
example.
sense. Okay. One of the matches in TNA history that's always interested me a lot is the feast or fired concept. Ultimately, that would be what made you leave TNA. Was that a difficult decision? Ultimately walking out the door. And what was the?
No,
Go ahead.
yeah. No, yeah. Well, any change is difficult to process, but I
Mhm.
think where the company was at the time and where I was, it was worth a shot. So I was either going to start the NWA with Billy or go back to NXT, and that was like the decision I had made. But like Impact at the time, changing of the guard, new ownership, like the reason I got my push was because the guard changed and there was, new people where you have to build new people. And so if I'm hanging around clogging up the mid to top of the card, I'm preventing growth from happening. Whereas if I go away on good terms, there's always room to come back and reignite it. So I would have become stale and I would have become complacent, could become boring. And I had a pretty good contract where they needed to make cost cuts where it's just like, maybe it's better if I go away and we revisit this down the road. So it was hard in that sense, especially because I was home and then walking into a new challenge. But it wasn't that hard because the business is very cyclical. And if you do everything the right way as a businessman, there's, no hard feelings. So feast or fire, though, I did lose that, didn't I?
Well, I mean,
Watch
you
it.
won the match, but you lost
Oh,
the
yeah.
case.
And Moose had it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That might be one of my favorite promos I ever did. And I did not plan a word of it
Okay.
when I got fired with the Jeremy Borash and like I think I like had the went through the 12 stages of grief all in like 3 minutes. But yeah, and then it was fucking on. That was a fucking awesome promo. But the only thing I had in mind was I was probably going to quote the Great Gatsby at the end because I looked at EC3 like Jay Gatsby, even though he was more like Tom Buchanan.
um, why did you decide when you went back to WWE to use that EC3 moniker?
Maybe a mistake, but created a brand. It got over.
Okay.
I owned the rights to the name. I think it was a catch-22. In one essence, I can walk in, it's known, people get it, they're excited to see it. But on the second half of that is like it's a second version of something, and the second version of something is never as good as the first. Whereas also, you have no people advocating for you if they haven't helped create you. And so, easy to plug EC3 in being over into these spots with these guys. That sounds cool because we know him, but there's nobody responsible for EC3 short of EC3. Whereas when that comes to being hypothetically on the main roster, you don't have anybody fighting for their idea to move forward, as opposed to there's a guy we all like who's pretty good. And I think that was a detriment. I don't know the right way to pursue that. Like I said, it's a catch-22. But at the time, EC3 looks cool on a t-shirt. It's easy to chant. It's marketable. It's over. And at that time, NXT was bringing in people that had, high-level indie names and exciting things people already kind of knew. So it made sense. But I tried to evolve it, but then the call-up happened pretty randomly and quickly where it didn't work out. And it was a bastardized, the clone of a clone, right? You don't want to clone a clone because the clone of a clone is shitty and it's got like, a gimp leg and like a lazy eye. And that's kind of what happened with the main roster.
Okay. I think it like your debut as EC3 in NXT might have been one of the most like I don't want to say most shocking, but like it was one of those TNA debuts, like comebacks that was like it's just interesting that he come in with the Carter name, seeing how it's so heavily influenced by TNA.
But I didn't come in with the Carter name.
Okay.
It was just EC3.
I know that's
That was the
something
the issue. People were like, yeah, Ethan Carter died. So I trademarked EC3.
okay.
I don't know if you ever mentioned Ethan Carter, and I don't think so.
I don't
But
think so.
yeah, that tie-in, like logically, that makes sense. Where people were like, what? Because I think the internet loves to like make shit up or
They
overreact.
do.
Yeah, okay, definitely they do. I'm
We'll
like,
go with make shit up.
it's absurd. And I feel bad for anybody that falls for it. But at the same time, how often are you going to read something that doesn't really happen or is not true and then keep reading it and keep talking about it? You're feeding the fucking beast, boys and girls. Don't. But in the ideas of the realm of like fourth wall breaking and shoots and shit like that, Dixie Carter's nephew is in the WWE. This is fucking. Oh my God, there's major heat backstage because Dixie Carter negotiated EC3's like shit like that. Where, nah, man, I just took 3 letters, well, 2 letters and a number, and I made it my own. Whatever.
Could we ever see you back in WWE or even TNA?
I'm enjoying what I do with NWA, but I wouldn't say like that's a question that can be. Could we? Anything could happen.
Okay.
Do I know? I can't give you a clear. I have a contract with NWA.
Fair enough.
I had one thing I do want to fucking kick John Cena's ass like once, and I got like less than a calendar year left to do it. But like, with the amount of people that are on that roster and the amount of clogging, like, would I fit in even close to that coming in? Who knows? So, yes or no? I can't tell you. There's a chance
Okay.
for anything, any times. So,
I know hot off your WWE release, it wasn't right away, I don't believe, but you shot into Ring of Honor for a small period of time. You started was doing work with the Briscoes.
dude,
Um, what was it like, working with the Briscoes? And did you guys have any clue that the company was shutting down?
yeah, no.
Okay.
I remember being on the conference call for that. Everyone was like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, that was just me. Welcome to wrestling, guys. You'll never fucking know. But Jay Briscoe's top three, one of my favorite opponents, and another guy like friend, cordial, cool, but like we weren't super close because we were in different companies and different times of our life. But when we wrestled, dude, he's the fucking best. Sorry, I get emotional thinking about it.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, like so working with him and like we were doing these like fucking God, if there were fucking COVID, man, there were people in that building. We were gonna probably have a three off, like, but that first match too. This is Ring of Honor work rate capital, smart mark city shit. If you watch the match I had with Jay, and he was very into this, like my whole thing was to do a physical grown man fight where our offense is very protected and we told a fucking story. And so there was like no finisher kickouts. There was no like gaga. It was like we kicked the shit out of each other and he damn near broke my neck and he beat me. And it was awesome. And I remember Delirious at the time when we came back, he was like, that was incredible. Two grown men fighting. Thank you. Just so to give the card a different look and a variation. But yeah, we would do these promos too. Like he's the only guy I could say that smoked me in a promo. I kind of let him because I'm a heel. But no, he like when we did these promo exchanges, he fucking destroyed me. It was great. So I'm very happy I got to do that, and I wish an audience paid money to see it live. That would have been cool.
Once ROH shut down, was there ever any talks about joining AEW or the Ring of Honor brand once Tony Khan bought it?
No, I talked with that took some time for that to facilitate.
Yeah,
I talked with AEW prior to it, and then that didn't go anywhere because I
fair
didn't
enough.
like the. Yeah, I mean, uh, I didn't want to. I didn't want to clone a clone a third time,
Okay.
if you know what I mean.
So I'm guessing we're insinuating that they wanted you to do the exact same thing, maybe that you did in NXT,
Yeah,
but a
and
third time.
right.
Okay.
I'm like, well, that's cool, if but also let's look at the context of the world because we're in a pandemic. Culture is damn near ripping itself apart. Everybody's on edge. I just got shit canned after a terrible run. I don't think who I am could show up and just be, I got a car and I'm rich. Hello, here's my cool song. Like there has to be the circumstance that would dictate a different person coming in. And so that was that.
Something I've always thought was interesting about you is anything that could possibly water down your character, you've been very good about pivoting and making sure that doesn't happen. How important do you think that is just in general in a wrestler's career?
I think it's important depending on how much you creatively care. I'm glad you noticed that because I don't know if it's broadly seen, but it's cool that we can talk about it. But I think it's super important that if like we are the embodiments of who we portray, that a lot of people will complain about creative, and rightfully, like there's a lot of shit creative. There's a lot of bad fucking shit. But then instead of taking it with such a negative approach, how can I work this? Maybe it's not going to be in my favor, but that my integrity remains intact. A lot of like the impact creative I have wasn't what it was, it's what we made it. Same with NWA. WWE was a totally different ball game, but at the same time, oh, I'm a loser chasing around our truth. I hate my life. What am I going to do to signify that? Well, I'm going to show up with a red cup because I'm hammered all the time because I have a drinking problem because I hate my life. And that's like something I got away with, but at least it's nothing, but it was something. And then there's the internet. Like, they saddled him with a red cup gimmick. Why's he got a red? Because, like, I did it, you know? But I think any talent, if they think properly and can converse eloquently, can take care of creative in any way to suit them, where no matter what the result is, win, loss, being embarrassed, being the man, being the woman, being awesome, you can get over in it anyway. Like, so even within defeat, you can get over. One example, like with Jay, for example, like he won the match. And the whole angle we built, and this wasn't like some giant creative play where a bunch of people were typing on keyboards, sending ideas, like this is him and I, where the whole story of the match was like, he will not shake my fucking hand. And at first I'm like a dick about it, but then the drubbing it took from him to like break me damn near in half and snap my neck, like worked up until how about now? And I lost the match, but he endorsed, he shook it like with, you're a fucking asshole, but good job. And so I think that's important to think that way. And when I book with Exodus too, I try to think that way because not everyone can win every time. So how do I protect them within defeats with something that's meaningful to move forward to next? And that's why in our brief history, everybody on our show, from the top of the card to the bottom, has something and is over in some retrospect. Even if they haven't done an offensive move, they're still over for a reason.
Okay. And I'd assume part of that is controlling the narrative.
Tell your
Um,
exactly.
you when you came into the NWA, you certainly did that. You definitely controlled your narrative, especially when you won the NWA World TV Championship, and then ultimately, in a way, cashed in to win the NWA title. How do you feel this NWA run is gone, and what can we expect going forward? Your time in the NWA.
Well, I'm the greatest living NWA World Heavyweight Champion of all time, so I guess that's cool. Up yours, Flair. Yeah, controlling your narrative, like so that was kind of in hindsight with what I was doing and building on the side, which is basically Exodus now, as we talked about before we jumped on. Like those ideas and those practices and that character development and that talent platform I wanted to create is Exodus. CYN had there was people involved and didn't work out, and that's okay. But this is what it built to be because this was the vision I had, and now it's completely mine. Uh, Same thing with portraying the character within the NWA. He's coming in, he's kind of fucking psychopath, sort of Tyler Durden-esque cult motherfucker who carries on and what yeah, won the national title, cashed it in. But here's another thing about creative is like halfway through that run, I started teasing what I was going to become, where I'm like prophesizing I'm going to become this self-actualized individual in this moment, where I'm going to become the overman. And then come NWA 75, I showed up completely different look, blonde hair, blue eye, tan and jacked as usual, but new music. I brought it all with me, new gear, new identity, where I called my own shot, right, with the creative, because like I built it up myself. They went along with it, and I just showed up and did it. And I think the Overman run was really cool, and there's a lot of room left to work with it. But I'm also always looking for something next. And so with what we have with Exodus and Overman, he kind of loses the title. He might have to become something different to get back to it. So maybe the Overman is becoming an Overlord. So that's the way my brain works. But I think the NWA run's been good. Very happy to be a part of the territory system, the best territory and the first territory. I'm trusted by the officials there, for better or worse. I'm bringing them constantly great talents like a Pretty Boy Smooth or a Brandon Beretta or Slime Balls or Carson Drake or Tiffany Nieves or Pastor CeeLo or Dante Casanova. Like, I'm bringing the next wave of the future with me. And I don't think there should be parity in that, what I mean by that is like, I don't think every territory can do what I'm doing with talent because I can bring the best out of the best people. And so I'm very proud of that. And I'm very defensive of it too, because my people do the business the right way, which I don't often see. So it's been a good run and we'll see where it goes.
How did it feel to be the guy that took the title from Titus and would send him into wrestling retirement?
Send him into wrestling retirement is gigantic. New Orleans home with his well-paying news analysis gig. Yeah, well, I'm a real villain. I'm sure the internet was really happy I got rid of him. But Tyrus, like I said, we came up together, we grew together, we've battled together. Like he is truly a friend in the industry. To have the honor to be someone's possibly last match, for him to do the service on the way out to me is a great honor. And that was really like that was on the cusp of Bray Wyatt's passing, who we were both very close with too. So it was a moment for sure. And again, like Tyrus and EC was not trying to go out there and have a 5-star wrestling match as much as I wanted to portray a Greek fucking tragedy, which I think we did pretty well. I mean, anytime somebody gives you their like I don't want to say essence, but let's just call it that, as they go somewhere else, they're doing that because they trust you with it. So somebody trusts me with something, I try to honor that.
Lastly, I'm going to ask, what was your experience like taking that NWA title and being on Fox News to promote the NWA?
It was cool. I had some good digs. That was a wild environment.
Okay.
So it's funny, a wrestling show, like let's say a TV taping, you're showing up at noon, show starts at 7. There's backstage, so whatever. Promos, pre-tapes, pictures, putting shit together, blah, 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 blah. Before the actual show starts, walk into Fox News a half an hour before you're on the show, give a little sheet. Here are the talking points we're going to probably talk about today. Okay, hang out for a minute, throw you out in front of a live audience. Someone's in your ear, and you're just kind of winging it. So it's pretty. I loved it as so far as an experience. And I had some good digs. I think I did all right. And then the really hot blonde chick that was on there with me, like really liked champagne, so I pretended to hate champagne, even though I love it, just so I can be, an antagonist to her. But wrestling prepares you for a lot of things in life, and I would say definitely one of those things is being on the spot on a cable news comedy show for sure.
Okay. I guess I shouldn't have said lastly because I do got one more question. So
Yep,
I lied.
that's okay.
Um, if you walked into a locker room and there was a young man that asked you for advice, what would that be? What would be the first thing that came to mind?
Be an individual. If I had to summarize it, that's usually my first bit of advice.
Okay.
And that I'm actually writing a book with that is one of the key points, but it's really like, yeah, because that's a question you get a lot. And sometimes it's kind of facetious and sometimes it's kind of, are they really listening? And then sometimes you have this conversation and then 6 months or a year goes by and you see that person again. And they go, hey, remember that conversation we had? I'll be like, fuck no. What? He goes, well, you told me this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, yeah. And so like I did this, this, and this, and this. And I'm like, oh, like I didn't recognize you. You look totally different. You're in shape. Your gear looks good. You move well in the ring. You're a totally fucking different person. And if I helped you do that, awesome. Now let's keep doing it. But it's really about finding your individual nature and again, harkening back full circle. finding a purpose in what you're doing here. So, what is your purpose in wrestling? Well, I want to be the world champion. Of course you do. Everyone says it. I want to make a living doing this. Of course you do. We all want to. Like, but what is it? What really is that purpose? Mine being I couldn't do anything else without thinking I'm a failure. I have to see it through. So, what's yours?
Okay, I like that. Um, EC3, I want to say thank you 100 times over. This was a great interview. We'll
Yeah,
have to do it again. I feel like there's a lot of meat on this bone. So if you ever want to come back on, I'm gonna leave this door open.
I'd be charmed to. Yeah, let's grow together, brother. So, clip it up, tag me in it, collab. That's the thing you got to do, though. Is fucking social media is a nightmare. You got to cut up the shows. You got to get the zips. You got to get the bits. You got to put the false headlines. EC3 returns to WWE, and it's this thing. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Like whatever. But yeah, good luck. It's hard, and we'll see you down the road. Again, if you want to come by Exodus, hit us up. And then anybody in the Cleveland, Chicago, Indiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, I don't know, land, Cleveland, Exodus Pro, 315, win in Rome 2. Check us out. If not, there on the NWA's YouTube.
Sounds good. Thank you once again, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, brother. Thank you.